Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of Dynasty After Dark. I'm your host, Calvin Timms. You can find me over on Twitter at TDC_Calvin or on the Dynasty After Dark YouTube channel. Real quick, before we get into the video today, the podcast is available on Spotify, Apple, Google, and anywhere that podcasts are found. If you can, just leave a quick comment, subscription, like on the video. I would appreciate it. Tell the podcast to one of your friends, just trying to grow it all off season. We've been pumping out the content for you guys, so thank you guys so much for tuning in. Now today I have a fun one. If you listen to the wide receiver part 2 rankings that just came out yesterday, I got into it a little bit. I started my mini rant, but the Jameson Williams argument I just do not understand, and I had to put out a video for it because, man, I cannot understand all, this is where analytics people just drive me absolutely crazy. Oh, well, he didn't play much as a rookie. Yeah, he was recovering from a torn ACL. So, real quick, Jameson Williams, wide receiver out of Alabama, 12th overall pick last year, and was regarded as basically the dynasty wide receiver 3 or 4. He was kind of one of those top 5 guys for sure. Olave was kind of some people's preference, but he was definitely up there. He was a top 5 dynasty wide receiver last year in a very competitive class, right? You had Treylon Burks, you had Garrett Wilson, Drake London, Chris Olave, Jameson Williams. That was the big 5 of that draft class. George Pickens also up there as well. Now, we have no idea who the best one of those guys is right now. Everyone's going to say it's Garrett Wilson. He showed the most as a rookie, but it could literally be anyone's game at this point in their careers. Those guys are all very talented, and yeah, there's a bunch of potential for all of these guys. Jameson Williams, though, is the one guy who really didn't show much last year, and that's because he was injured. So I talked about it before. He was the number 12 overall pick last year in the rookie draft, in the dynasty draft. And, the Detroit Lions actually traded up for Jameson Williams, and they traded up pretty heavily. So they took Aiden Hutchinson in the same draft class, number 2 overall. Really expected. Everyone thought they would go him or Trayvon Walker, I believe, is who the Jaguars took number 1. So it was one of those two guys at 2 overall. Well, they didn't have another pick until 32. So they traded up 20 draft spots to go and get Jameson Williams last year. They gave up 32, 34, 66 for number 12 and number 46. So, they gave up a first-round pick and then the second pick in the second round to move up to 12. And yes, they did get a second-rounder back in the back half, basically, but they gave up the 302 as well. So, it was a big trade on draft night. And then when they took Jameson Williams, I think he was the number 2, if I remember correctly, wide receiver off the board. I think only Garrett Wilson went in front of him last year. And, it was a big shock because everyone knew Jameson Williams had torn his ACL just a couple months prior to the NFL draft. Now, Jameson Williams tore his ACL on January 10th of this last year. So a little over a year ago, we're about 15 months removed from that. He got drafted in April, basically April 28th of last year. 3 months roughly removed from an ACL tear. Nobody expected Jameson Williams to be healthy to start the season. And because of that, Jameson Williams missed all of OTAs, all of training camp, all of preparation time with Jared Goff. He didn't play a single snap until week 13 against the Jacksonville Jaguars. Now, week 13 was December 4th. That's when that game was. He played 11% of the snaps, 19, 19, 17, 25, 24 to finish the season. And everyone says, well, if he was a first-round pick and if he was really that good, he should have seen the play. He should have seen the field a lot more. But let's use a little modicum of intelligence here, guys. He was injured. He had no prep time with this offense. Yes, he can practice the plays. He can read and understand the plays, but he's got zero rhythm. He's got no timing on any of these plays except by watching them. He hasn't been running the routes. And by the time December rolls around, you're really not doing a ton week in and week out in terms of actual training. they're doing the walkthroughs and things like that, but they're not doing full timing drills on the practice field. So Jameson Williams had no real shot to ever get a rapport with Jared Goff last year. Now, you couple that in with the fact that this team also has, at the time, it had DJ Chark, it had Amon-Ra St. Brown, and they were going for playoffs. They were right in the middle of a playoff push. The team started 1-6, and then from the bye, they started and went on an absolute tear and went down to week 18 where they lost out on the chance to go to the playoffs. Jameson Williams had 1 catch on 9 targets last year for 41 yards and a touchdown. I believe he had 2 touchdowns called back because of penalties in which he was held, or an offensive lineman held or something like that on those 2 plays. So the guy is extremely fast and extremely explosive, and we did not get to see what he can do on a full season's pace. Now, Jameson Williams, for me, would still be a top 3 wide receiver in this class. I like him more than pretty much everybody but JSN and Quentin Johnson. I think he'd be close with Quentin Johnson, but I think I'd give the edge to Quentin Johnson. Jameson Williams is only 22 years old, 6'2", 180, and is out of Alabama. Was one of the best wide receivers out of that school in a while, right? He's competing with Devonta Smith and the other crop of really good players over there. Now, people are pointing back to the fact that, we couldn't cut it in Ohio State, so he transferred to Alabama. Guys, what are we doing here? We saw what he could do in Alabama. He was extremely successful with was it Bryce Young? I can't remember. I don't think it was Bryce Young. I think it was Tua. But he was extremely successful and Mac Jones. That's who it was. In Alabama with those quarterbacks. Who cares if he transferred out of Ohio State? What are we doing here for these arguments? Go buy Jameson Williams for cheap. I think he's extremely underrated right now. Now, I will say in terms of, one quarterback or even super flex leagues, he'd probably be around the 1.6 for me. That's where I'd be taking him, but I don't think he's going to cost you that much in any of your leagues out there. And that's why I wanted to put this video out there. The arguments against Jameson Williams are dumb. They make no sense. And when you look at the context of he was back on the field in less than a year of recovery time from his ACL tear, 11 months essentially. He had no practice time with the quarterback. He had no practice time with anyone on the team other than to, be on the sidelines and read the plays from the playbook. He had no real chance at being a fantasy producer. Everyone expected that last year when he was a top 5 wide receiver. Then when he didn't produce, like we all expected him not to produce, people are now fading him a year later. Well, there's only five wide receivers who played less than 30% of snaps in their rookie season. He was injured. Guys, again, analytics. This is where it just gets absolutely aggravating because it's just annoying, right? These guys, they just try so hard to be obnoxious with it. And yeah, Jameson Williams remains a screaming value. Him and Amon-Ra St. Brown is a great combination, and I think you should invest in him quickly before his value spikes this upcoming season. So that's my thoughts on Jameson Williams. Again, I just wanted to get this video out there. I'm tired of the Jameson Williams slander. It makes no sense. I don't have him in my top 12 right now. He's very close. He's 13 or 14 at this moment in time. I think the potential is still right there. He's very, very good. I have Amon-Ra just slightly ahead of Jameson Williams, but Amon-Ra's balled out for 2 years in a row now. So I like Amon-Ra St. Brown. I think that Jameson Williams is a completely different type of prospect, and I think he's going to be extremely valuable for fantasy football. So Jameson Williams, if you can get him for a mid first round pick, great. If you can't, that's what it is. But yeah, I think you can get him for a lot cheaper than that right now. So based on all the conversations I've heard about Jameson Williams. So that's my thoughts on JMO. Let me know your thoughts again over on Twitter, over on YouTube. Hit me up anytime at TDC_Calvin. Any questions you might have all off season. Again, thank you guys. We've been pumping out the content, and every time you guys listen or comment or anything on the videos, it really means a lot to me. So thank you guys so much. Have a good night.